Everybody watching on our Facebook Live and our YouTube Live. All right, Blue. We've gone through every team in the conference. Now we're down to the last two teams who played for a conference championship last year, the Southern Jaguars and the Jackson State Tigers. And let's take a look at Southern. Going 8-5 last year. They were 7-1 in conference play. Notable win on the season for me was a homecoming victory, 24-14 over Alcorn State. Their worst loss, of course, at home, 51-7 to Nichols. All right, let's look at the Jaguars offensively. They ranked 10th in scoring, only averaging 20 points a game last year. They were 4th in total offense, averaging 364 yards a game. 5th in offense, rush offense, averaging 156 rushing yards a game. And they were 4th in pass offense, averaging 207 yards a game. Defensively, one of the top in the conference. 3rd in scoring defense, only giving up an average of 16 points a game. They were 3rd in total defense, giving up an average of 300 yards a game. 5th in rush defense, giving up an average of 148 yards rushing a game. And that Jaguars were 1st in pass defense, giving up an average of 152 yards a game. Blue, your look at the back of 2024 for Southern and looking ahead.
Hey man, when the luck's on your side, you'll take it, right? I mean, there's there's a few games, man, where Terry. I'm not a Southern fan, but man, I had heartburn watching some of y'all's games where I was like, man, if I was a Southern fan, I would need a pacemaker. It was like there was no game y'all just wanted to win comfortably. It was just it's either going to be a thriller or a blowout. It was insane, but I think offensively, Southern's going to be a lot better than people expect. I'm a real believer in Jalen Woods. I know there's been a lot of talk about the kid they added from Valley and also Cameron McCoy. I'm going to be honest, Perry, based on what I've seen film-wise from all three of those quarterbacks, I think it's a no-brainer decision to start Jalen Woods. I'm not a believer in either of the other two guys. I think Cameron McCoy should make a move to wide receiver, be a gadget guy, and I think Jalen Woods should be the guy there. But I think offensive line, Terry, the good thing is Southern played so many guys on the offensive line last year when they had to make that change mid-season. A lot of these young guys have grown up now, and they've returned 5 players that played over 460 snaps on the offensive line, Perry. And you returned Morris at wide receiver and Dupree Fuller, who might be the best tight end in the conference coming into the year. So I think the offense should be pretty good again. And I look defensively, obviously it starts with that bad man, Kelby Givens. Perry, what is there even to say about him anymore? He is just a playmaker. He's going to be the preseason SWAC Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year again because he's probably going to have another 20 tackles for loss and another 10-plus sacks. I mean, what else is there to say? But I think the position people are sleeping on for Southern is safety, Perry. Elijah West, Herman Brister, Horatio Johnson, and then at corner you got guys. You got what's his name? Xavier Spencer coming back. Eric Reed Jr. played a lot of snaps last year. I really do think the secondary for Southern should be the strength of this defense outside of Kelby Givens on the defensive line. The one concern I have is how could they get bigger in the trenches, especially interior defensive line for Southern? Because Perry, as good as some of those guys were, when you have a guy like Willie Miles who is just, I mean, his mindset was what you wanted, right? He was so tough and he had that big play, but down to down, you need more size on the interior, even height wise, right? And I think Southern did that by hitting the JUCO level, bringing in some transfers that can reinsure that interior defensive line, because you're going to need that to allow Kelby Givens to eat on the edge, because everybody's going to know where number one is on the edge, because they're not going to let him beat them, right? Because you know Kelby Givens is going to be that game changer. So that's where I'm at with Southern right now.
All eyes are going to be on that quarterback position, as you said. I'm cool with Cameron McCoy. If they use him wildcat, gadget, that's perfect. I mean, that guy with his speed is too good to just be on the sideline. They have to find creative ways to be able to use him out on the field and get some offense going, because one thing Southern struggled with last year was putting up enough points. And that we saw that in the SWAC championship game, and we saw that both times against Jackson State. And that leads me to the SWAC champions and overall Black College National champions who won the Celebration Bowl last year, Jackson State, the last team we're going to be talking about. The Tigers went 12-2 overall on the season. They did a perfect season in conference play, 8-0. Their notable win on the season was winning the Celebration Bowl for me, 28-7 against a really good South Carolina State team. Their worst loss, 41-20 on the road at Grambling. It's just always something about the Tigers and the Tigers up there at Grambling. But looking at them offensively, Blue, Jackson State ranked first in scoring offense in terms of last year, 36 points a game average. They were second in total offense, averaging 403 yards a game. They were first in rush offense, averaging 213 rushing yards a game. And they were seventh in passing offense, averaging 189 yards passing a game. Defensively, right there at the top. Second in scoring defense, only giving up 17 points a game. They were second in total defense, giving up an average of 273 yards a game. They were second in rush defense, giving up an average of 110 yards rushing a game. And third in pass defense, giving up an average of 162 yards a game. Blue, looking back at the defending SWAC and Black College National Champions, Jackson State 2024, and looking ahead into 2025.
Perry, you're gonna stop inviting me on the show at this point, because every time I come on here, I got to say something good about Jackson State, and your listening base.
You're telling the truth, baby.
Is not a fan of that. But Perry, we have a HBCU national championship team that returns 26 players that played over 100 snaps last year. I just want that to sink in real quick. 26 guys, 16 offensive players that played over 100 snaps, Perry. It's unbelievable. And they've returned 5 offensive linemen that played over 290 snaps. They've returned 4 wide receivers that played over 300 snaps last year. And you get Jacoby Morgan coming back, who's probably a top 10 quarterback in FCS football right now. I think he's the best quarterback in HBCU football right now. And then at linebacker, you get Ashton Taylor and Reed Pulliam back at linebacker. Jeremiah Williams comes back at defensive tackle, who I think is the best defensive tackle in FCS football. Shamar Hawkins comes back, B.J. Washington. The one question mark I do have for them, Perry, if you had to pick a question mark, is edge rusher. Now, they have some guys that they're high on in terms of transfer portal additions. John Brown comes back at edge, but I don't know if they have that guy right now who I look at as a 10-plus sack guy. And I do wonder who's going to step up there, because you look at some of these Jackson defenses over the past few years, they've had a guy who could go get the quarterback and generate a ton of negative plays off the edge. And I don't necessarily know if they have that right now. And then the other question mark is corner, and they've really added a handful of guys that are going to be really, really good. I look at a guy like Levi Wyatt from McNeese, who was a stud at McNeese, and he's going to come in and be an immediate starter. KJ Chisholm started as a freshman last year at corner at a few times, and I think he'll probably take a big step forward, man. But listen, Jackson checks all the boxes for me. Perry, I look at that schedule, and I think the ceiling is 11-1, and I really do. I changed my tune a little bit, just kind of looking at Southern Miss's roster. Listen, Southern Miss is going to be actually really good next year. And I hate it for Jackson, because it's like they have all these FBS games here over the past few years that they should win. Like if these two teams played last year, Jackson probably beat Southern Miss. But with everything that was brought in from Marshall, especially that quarterback Braxton, who I think he was like 20 touchdowns, 2 picks, was the Sun Belt newcomer of the year, just an insane athlete at quarterback. I don't love that game for Jackson right now, but they should walk through the rest of their schedule. Like, unless they slip up unexpectedly like they did last year against Grambling, I think 10-2, 11-1 should be the expectation for TC Taylor this year.
Blue, let's do this. Let's look at all 12 teams. Basically, you know what's going to happen at SWAC Media Day. They're going to do their predicted order of finish. But from 12 all the way to number 1, give me from 12, from the worst team to your best team heading into 2025.
Oh, God, man. Okay, so I guess I'll start from the bottom. I think 12, I would put Valley there. There's way too many question marks. And also, I just have more confidence in the quarterback situation at UAPB, so I would have them at 11. And then I would put Bethune-Cookman at 10. And this is where it gets hard, Perry. I think probably 5 through 9, you could probably just flip a coin on some of these teams. But I would probably put 9 Texas Southern, 8 Grambling, 7 Alabama A&M, 6 Alcorn. Mm-hmm. And then I think in the top 5, 3 through 5, you could flip a coin. It would be some sort of variation of Southern, FAMU, and Bama State. And then I think at 2, I would put PV, because they would be my pick right now to win the SWAC West. and then number one would be JSU by a pretty significant margin.
For everybody out there, when you talk about PV, what is it? Is it Coach Tremaine himself? Is it the talent? Is it a little bit of both? And how do PV fans buy into what this is? Because they've struggled with the attendance in the past, and it does not seem to be the thing to do to go to a PV game over there. Does this seem to turn the tide for them to maybe to get the interest of the fan base and maybe gain some new fans?
Well, I mean, hopefully, right? That's the thing. But I also don't know. I'll be honest. I'm not going to act and sit here like I'm an expert in attendance because here I'm going to just be honest with you. I really don't care, bro. There could be 0 fans at the game, and it wouldn't bother me as long as there's a football game to watch. I don't know what the dynamics are in that area to really give you a strong opinion, but I'll say this: the cure to it, a lot of attendance issues is winning, and I do think if PV goes on a run here and actually starts winning, I do think the attendance will improve some. I don't really know where I would put the ceiling on that though, and I do think it will. And like Tremaine said, I think he's calling for more buy-in of the fans. It's like if you want a winning program, we need some support here, and I think that's good. But I think it's a little bit of both, Perry. I think it's Tremaine as a coach, who I do think he's a hell of a coach. And on top of that, too, I thought they brought in a lot of talent. And here's why. If they were in the East, I don't think I would have as high expectations. But in the West, Perry, you look at Southern, who I think is by far their biggest opponent. And I think the West could be determined by that game in Baton Rouge. But Southern offensively can be had, right, Perry? I mean, we talked about it earlier. Their offense has not been consistent. Can Mark Frederick find a way to get something out of that offense?
Yeah.
And so I think PV will have the chance to win that game. And then, Perry, outside of Southern, we just went all the way through all the question marks for all the other teams. Is there a team in the West that you feel like PV can't compete with? I don't think so. And especially because if Alcorn doesn't find a quarterback?
And that was where I was going to go with it, because Alcorn was bad passing the ball last year. Horrible.
Agreed. Yeah, and so and that's the thing. So like, I mean, if you split it up, like in East and West races, I think Jackson should win the East pretty convincingly. I think their biggest challenge is probably going to be Bama State if Andrew Body can stay healthy. I think Sam just has so many question marks at quarterback, Perry. If they nail the quarterback pick, I think Sam's right there in the race too. I think, like I said earlier, I think Alabama A&M's a year away, and I think BCU and Valley are light years behind everybody else in that division. On the other side, I think UAPB is pretty far behind right now. But I'm going to be honest, Perry, again, and how many times have we said this year in and year out? I think if you told me right now Texas Southern, Grambling, PV, Southern, or Alcorn won the West, I would tell you, yeah, probably. That makes sense, especially if KJ Cooper's as good as he was in his limited action last year. I could absolutely see Texas Southern making a surprise run and winning the West. What happens if Grambling upgrades at quarterback and that defense takes a step forward like everyone thinks? I think Grambling's a huge sleeper. And then Alcorn, like this is what's weird, Perry. You mentioned earlier they finished 5-3 in conference. Because of how bad Jackson beat them the last week, people act like Alcorn went 3-9 last year. Like this was a team that was like top 2.
Yeah, to me they seem to be a quarterback away.
Exactly, they check all the other boxes, and it's kind of like how, Perry, and you're in LSU country. It's kind of like the old SEC days when Bama had their kind of run there, where LSU would lose to Bama, in a certain way, and everyone would be like, "Oh my God, LSU's not good," but LSU would run through the rest of the conference.
Yeah,
it's like we can't really judge them against the juggernaut that was the Celebration Bowl champions. I just think it got away from them. Also, too, they didn't have their starting quarterback. Like, it was a whole list of things. So I think Alcorn's in a lot better position than people have them in. I've seen some predictions that have Alcorn winning 2-3 games, and I just don't see that happening. And like I said, I could see PV and Southern winning the West. And I'll say this. I think Southern's going to be a lot. I think Southern should be better than they were last year. And so that's the thing is I would right now, it's July 12th. I would probably have Southern PV 1A, 1B. Like they're right there together. And I really do think it might come down to that game in Baton Rouge, which is on my list of games I might have to travel to because that game is going to be insane because I think Southern fans are going to show up and show out.
It's homecoming, Blue. What you
exactly.
think?
Well,
That's all corn about it last year.
Yeah,
biggest homecoming ever.
It's homecoming, but Perry, let's be honest. Southern fans like to talk trash with the best of them. With how Tremaine's been talking on social media, even if it wasn't homecoming, it would be insane not to think those fans in Baton Rouge weren't going to show up and let them hear it.
Don't hype me up now.